already getting messages about my internet connection.
I don't see anything wrong with it yet.
Okay. Well, I'm in a different room. I'm not as close to the internet as usual. My kids are home today, so I locked myself in a room. They're out right now, but they might be back soon. So we'll see how it goes. They're out with Christina now. Sterny is away. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is going to be a bit of a continuation of last week's study, which I got a little bit of a broader understanding in after studying this next discourse from the Rebbe. If you weren't here last week, it's fine. So I'm going to give all the background. It's going to also connect into this week's Torah portion and last week's Torah portion. So we're usually doing the past week. Lech Lecha would be the past week. We're also going to touch upon something which happens in this portion of Vayera, which is the fourth portion of the Torah. So there's an interesting line, vart. It's like a message from the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, blessed memory, in the name of his father, the Rebbe Rashab. This Lubavitcher Rebbe, he says that in the first two portions of the portion of Bereshis, the first portion of the Torah, it starts off to be a nice portion. It talks about God creating the world. All this creativity that's happening. But the end of the portion is not so happy, because that's when we talk about the corruption in Noah's times, when everybody was acting immorally, and Hashem wanted to destroy the world. That's how the portion ends. The following portion, which is Noach, which we spoke about last week, it's the following portion starts off to be a sad portion because it talks about the flood, it talks about the Mabul. But the end of the portion is happy because Abraham is born. The third portion, Lech Lecha, is a true happy portion because it's all about Abraham. The whole portion we're living with Abraham. Now it's interesting why were the portions divided the way they were? Because if the ending of Bereshis is sad, why don't we just move the sad part to the beginning of the next portion, the beginning of Noach, and move the happy part, which is the end of Noach, to the beginning of Lech Lecha. So we bunch things together, and we would have two happy portions and one sad portion in the middle. Hi Shira, welcome. David.
I thought you said the beginning of Noach was not happy. Did I get that wrong?
That's right. So why don't we move the end of Bereshit?
Why would you move the sad portion in the first to the sad portion in the second? I'm not following the logic.
Why don't we bunch up the sad together and make the whole first portion to be happy, the whole third portion to be happy, and the middle portion will be the sad portion.
But after the flood, the middle portion wasn't sad anymore, was it?
So, well, I mean, we have the story of the Tower of Babel, where they were trying to rebel against God. Abraham is born. That's when things really started to change.
Okay.
I mean, really, Abraham was the first Jew. Abraham was the first monotheist. But Abraham is all build up to get to Abraham. So,
okay.
There's an interesting midrash, which kind of talks about Noah, and it puts Noah down in comparison to Abraham. We know that in this week's portion, in this week's portion is the story of God destroying the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. So after the angels come to Abraham to tell Sarah that she's going to have a son at the age of 90, Isaac, age of 91, and after they leave Abraham's tent, after Abraham hosted them, so the next angel is traveling along to Sodom to turn over the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. 5 cities that were all sitting on, they were all in one in one valley, and they were all going to be turned over. And we have that story in this week's portion of Vayera, fourth portion of the Torah. In between, we have almost a whole chapter of Abraham begging from God to let go of his decree that he's going to destroy these cities. And Abraham starts off by saying, maybe there's 50 people, maybe there's 50 righteous people among all of the cities, 10 righteous people in each city, because there's 5 cities, so maybe there's 50. And then when God says that when they went to take a look, and there's no 50, maybe there's 40, maybe there's 30, maybe there's 20, all the way back until he gets to 10. After 10, he gives up. Maybe there's 10 tzaddikim, maybe there's 10 righteous people in the cities. These people should bring protection. They should be a salvation for the rest of the city. So even if you're not going, he says it's not right. You're going to destroy these innocent, righteous people. Besides the fact that they're innocent, they are also like the protection for the city. So let everybody else be saved in the right of because of these tzaddikim, because of these righteous people. And after he gets to 10, he said it wasn't possible anymore, so Abraham gave up. Because there was no 10. It was less than that. So we see Abraham caring deeply about other people. People that didn't really have to do with him. Obviously his nephew lived in those cities, but his nephew was saved anyways, Lot. But Abraham himself didn't really have much to do with these people. We spoke last year at length about the cruelty and to the low level that these people got to, that the way that they were treating treating anyone that wanted to give and share with the worst treatment you could ever imagine. These were really bad people, so to speak. I mean, and Abraham is praying for them, trying to bring protection for them. But how is he doing it? Through the tzaddikim, through the righteous people, because the righteous people are going to bring protection for everybody else. That was his way in to try to get God to let go of the decree. Noach, Hashem tells Noach, we spoke about this last year also, Hashem tells Noach, that there's going to be a flood. In 120 years from now, there's going to be a flood. So the flood happened when Noach was 600 years old. 599 years old. People lived for a long time in those days that we spoke about last week. Noach lived till 800, 900 or something. So the flood happened at year 600. Noach was 480 years old. He didn't even have kids yet. And God told him in 120 years from now there's going to be a flood that's going to destroy the world because these people are corrupt. They act immorally, and they're going to be destroyed. So, and Hashem says, you go build an ark for yourself, an ark of protection. This massive structure that's going to build, this massive boat, which is going to protect him and his family and all of the and some of all of the animals to keep these species in the world. Part of the purpose of building that ark, as we're told at length by all of the reason God told him so much before, is going to happen. Besides the fact that it took him time to build, and we spoke last year, does it really take that long to build an ark? But part of the reason was it was supposed to arouse the people around to wonder. First of all, they're going to wonder what's the reason? Why are you doing this? Why are you building this massive ark? And Noach is going to say, because God is planning to destroy the world. Why is he going to destroy the world? Because of your corruption, because of your bad behavior. Maybe you should return. Maybe you should do teshuvah. Maybe it's time to fix your ways. And we're told in the Midrash that Noach actually did, and he did go around. He did tell the people. He went around telling the people, "You're going to be destroyed. You're going to be wiped out. You better build. You better return to Hashem. You better do teshuvah, because otherwise it's going to be the end of all of you." And Hashem wants you to return. He doesn't want to just destroy you. He wants you to return to God. But they didn't. It wasn't. He wasn't successful in his rebuke or in his welcome. No, he wasn't successful in his talking to the people. And he built the ark. And after he built the ark, and eventually, the flood came, and only him and his family survived. Everybody else was wiped out. besides Og the giant. David.
It was my understanding that Teshuvah was not available until after the flood. Is that a misunderstanding, or?
That's what we spoke about last week, right?
Well, you said that he told them to do Teshuvah, and I'm just saying that doesn't seem to fit. So I'm just wondering.
Good question. Good question. What was, in other words, what was that Teshuvah? What would it be exactly? So it's I don't have an answer for you off the bat. Yeah, I don't know. Not sure.
I mean, I could see that he could say just change your ways and stop doing that, but that's different than Teshuvah.
Right. Sorry?
In what way is it different?
Because Teshuvah is repenting or going deeply. It's not just changing your behavior, but it's actually meditating on that and fundamentally changing the root of it and going back to Hashem and cleaving to a higher level of Hashem. But just changing your behavior and stopping doing the bad stuff doesn't mean that you've actually come back to Hashem in any significant way.
So this discourse that we're talking about today doesn't really get so much into the story of Noach. So we're going to leave this for now, and we can get back to it. What the Midrash does say, says the Bereshis Rabbah, says that Noach was unlike Abraham. He didn't really he didn't really ask for mercy. He didn't really ask for forgiveness not forgiveness. He didn't really ask for God to have mercy on the people. He did his job. He told them you need to fix your ways. You're going to be destroyed. But he didn't actually go to respond to Hashem and say, no, this is not okay. Unlike Abraham, who looked in this week's portion, maybe there's 10, maybe there's 50 righteous people, maybe there's 40 righteous people, maybe there's 30. He looked to change God's decree of destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. So the Midrash says Noach, he wasn't as good as Abraham, basically. Didn't really care about the people. The Zohar takes it a step further. And the Zohar says that Abraham, he didn't do, it's Aramaic, he didn't do as he was supposed to. Because he only asked for forgiveness for the people of Sodom and Gomorrah in merit of the righteous people, in merit of the tzaddikim. He didn't ask for them as they are, and the biggest proof is that once there was not enough tzaddikim anymore, once there was not enough righteous people, Abraham gave up. That was his whole tact, his whole way in was, maybe there's righteous people that will bring protection for everybody else. And they don't deserve, these are good people, they don't deserve to be wiped out. But he didn't deeply care about it. He didn't actually look to change the fate of the people that, without the merit of the tzaddikim. So the middle, so Noach didn't in general he didn't respond to Hashem. He just let it be. He did his job. He did, God told him build an ark and tell everyone why you're building it. So he did that, but he didn't do more than that. Abraham actually responds to Hashem, but he didn't do good enough because he didn't actually do everything he could to ask for mercy, even for the wicked people, only for the righteous people, or only in merit of the righteous people.
Maybe he saw that they were so far gone that there was no hope.
That's actually a great explanation. That's what we spoke about last week. You're talking about Abraham or Noah?
Abraham with Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, they were pretty horrifying people with the stuff that they were doing there.
I don't think what Hashem says after the story of the flood is that I see that people Yetzer Lev Adam Ra Min Urav. People are made that way. People their instinct is selfish. Their instinct is bad. That's what the verse means. Mm-hmm. So Hashem said, I created these people that their instinct is bad. I'm going to give them the opportunity to be able to do teshuvah, and that's what the rainbow is. The rainbow reminds them that there's going to be destruction to the world, everything else. So yeah, Hashem said, I didn't say I'm not going to. He said I'm not going to destroy the whole world. So he still was allowed, so to speak, to destroy other specific cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. But it's not the ideal way. Abraham could have said, let them do teshuvah, find a way for them to return, Look what happened to Nineveh, the story that we read on Yom Kippur, where Yonah goes to Nineveh, right? There's always opportunity to teshuvah. Last week we spoke about we brought an analogy of a very rich parents and a child. The very rich parents have the unlimited funds, and they could give their child all the funds and let the child, go off with it and figure out the rest of their life. Or they could hold the funds back and make the child work to figure out themselves how to work, how to get experiences in life, and then they'll actually be able to be a responsible human being. I'm not going to get back into that, but there's a great analogy that we bring. I'm going to bring this week from the Rebbe, which is going to bring out a few different stages. A teacher and a student. And we're not talking about a teacher. We're studying together. But we're talking about a real teacher, someone that has an extreme, someone that has a great depth. There's people that they're extremely deep people, incredible minds, and they also have knowledge. They have ideas that they have created, that they have come up with. And these teachers are teaching their students. They're passing down their knowledge and possibly their depth also to their students. So there's a teacher and a student, and the teacher gives everything to the student, teaches them. Let's not say gives everything. The teacher gives over to the student a tremendous, an incredible idea, incredible piece of knowledge, with all of the background, with all of the framework of how it makes sense and everything else, and repeats it and gives it over again and again until the student really grasps it. And now the student is able to take that knowledge that they got from the teacher and go with it and teach others, share it with others, give over the same beauty, the same depth. Also, the teacher gave the depth also to give over the whole thing to other people. There's another teacher that doesn't focus on just giving the knowledge itself, giving the idea itself, but focuses on giving over the depth of giving over the mythology of how they got to that knowledge. I'm not going to say the depth, but they also give over, how did I come up with this? This is how you're supposed to think. This is how you're supposed to learn. You learn this idea. You're going to figure out a framework of how to learn these ideas, and you're going to be able to come up with the knowledge yourself. In the first case, where the teacher gives over an idea to the student, and the student gives it over properly, so the student has the light of the teacher inside of them. They have the depth. They have everything. They can take it and pass it on, just like in an undiluted way, to take the knowledge as it is and give it over properly. They've learned for many years. They worked hard on it. They really grasped it. The problem is, the disadvantage is they can't come up themselves with the same kind of depth, with the same kind of knowledge. So they have the whole light of the teacher. They have everything. They're able to give it over, but only in a specific area. When it comes to, let's say, figuring something else out, using their head for something else, they don't have the framework. They don't know how to get. They don't have the mythology of how to get to this place. They only have an idea, which a teacher, or a very, something with a lot of details, let's say, but the teacher gives over, but without the skill and without the knowledge of how to get there. In the second case, the teacher teaches the student how to get there, how to do it themselves. But ultimately, the disadvantage is that the student is without the teacher. The teacher is not there anymore. And the teacher's depth is not something which they can figure out themselves with the framework. The framework is great, but the teacher also has depth behind it. So they are able to learn. They know how to learn. They know how to make the building of how to get to this place, but they don't really deeply understand it the same way the teacher understood it, the same way the teacher was able to give it over. Because they don't have the same depth of the teacher. So it's the student by themselves innovating, creating ideas with a framework, but without the light of the teacher. Sometimes a real teacher will say to their students, I wish you could have heard this from my teacher. My teacher would have been able to give this over to you even, better than I can. Because the teacher had the light. They were an incredible mind. I'm not that same kind of mind. I know how to do it. I know they taught me the way, how to learn, but I don't have the depth of the teacher. What's level number 3? So you're going to say we're going to bring the two together. How do we bring the two together? How do we teach? How does a teacher teach not only the framework of how to get to the idea, but also not only the methodology, but also the depth? How does he give over the depth also? The teacher trains a student, and this is only a student, obviously, that has a mind which is capable of it. The teacher trains the student how to be like them, how to work on themselves, how to refine their mind and refine their way of thinking and their way of seeing things. That not only do they have the framework and the methodology of how to get there, they also are able to take on the depth of the teacher. This is in Hebrew, this is called Chushei HaTalmid Kuchushei HaRav. The abilities of the student are like the abilities of the teacher. Chushim, the talent, the abilities. It's not just the knowledge, which the knowledge is separate from the teacher. The knowledge is an idea which they give over, or even the methodology, which is also a separate idea. It's a way of it's a building block of how to get it, which the teacher figured out and gave over to the student. It's the depth and the knowledge that comes. It's the depth and the framework that comes together with it. It's everything together. Now the student can come up with ideas with the same level, with the same depth that the teacher had. What are we taking this? What are we taking these 3 levels into? David, go on.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a comment that when I listen to this, it feels very abstract and hard to grasp. But if I make the analogy of a music teacher teaching a kid how to play music, it comes to life for me because they have to learn scales, they have to learn all this. But if they can't actually witness a music teacher as a concert pianist, let's just say, they don't actually know what's possible with that. And so it just comes to life for me if I put it in that analogy. But if I just try to do it in the abstract, it's hard for me to grasp the distinctions. So I just add that in case it's helpful for anyone else. But when I do it with the music teacher, one is the fundamentals of how the music works, and then the other is actually seeing it alive and operating.
And what would be the third?
When the two are together. So you've learned the method, you hear the teacher, and you practice with the teacher. So you're in this amazing music together. And you know how to develop it yourself, and you see them innovating as they go. They might add new things to it, and you're just kind of in this kind of beautiful concert, and you're inspired by what's possible.
So how does the student take that with them outside of the concert?
They have the methodology. So the methodology is scales and other things that are built in. They can practice that, but if they practiced it without the teacher, they'd never get to that level. But when they practiced it on their own, they come back with the teacher. There's something that gets transmitted, a transmission from the teacher that you can't put into a methodology. So they get both. But if you don't have the methodology, you don't know the principles behind it, then you might be able to do it, but you're unlikely to be able to innovate on top of it. So to me, it's just, anyway, if it's harder to grasp that way, don't try it. But for me, it makes it brings it to life when I put it in that analogy. Because I've seen that in my life. I've seen, and most of us haven't seen wonderful teachers like you're talking about, and those analogies. It's a little bit abstract. Maybe in Chabad you see it in those teachings.
One area that I can say I've seen it in is in teaching Chassidus, because Chassidus is, you've got hundreds and hundreds of books of Chabad Chassidus, I'd say, which is giving over these ideas. Literally hundreds of books on my shelf. You see on our shelves in our home. But sometimes it's not about knowing all that. There are people that have read all of it, but it's about being able to see the depth, be able to take the depth behind it, and be able. So there are teachers that I've learned from. You can see that they have a tremendous depth, and some of them will give over more of a framework of how to learn, and then some will give over. You'll hear them talking, you'll get more of the transmission, like you were saying. I don't know if I ever, if these teachers are unnecessary. We'll take this idea. We can't let it is a little bit abstract. Let's take it and apply it to a few situations now and see, just to get some kind of distinction. But specifically in what we're talking about, which is the Torah portions over here at the beginning of Bereshis.
I just want to say something that isn't really about this, because I actually had some amazing teachers, not just Chabad teachers.
There we go.
Just
tell us about your teachers.
People I was just lucky. But anyway, you said that there's no tshuva until later on. And I just want to say that I was taught that tshuva kadma la'olam, meaning the tshuva comes before the world. That that was created at the time of before the creation of the world. And I was just looking it up. It's from Chazal. I don't know how you say Chazal in English.
The sages.
The sages. And there's all kinds of explanations about why tshuva comes before the world. So
yeah. The Torah became before the world, but the question is whether it's only at the spiritual levels or whether it's actionable in the world. And when did it come to action in the world?
It was applied to the world, basically. The fact that Hashem destroyed the whole world by the flood is why didn't He give them the chance to do teshuvah? So that's
what I'm saying is that when you said tshuva doesn't come until later on, I'm just saying it says
they're both true.
Clearly
so in my understanding, they're both true because the Torah was created 2,000 years before the world, but just at a spiritual level, it wasn't practical and tangible. And so in my understanding of all the Hasidus and all of this is that they come to different worlds. We have these different worlds and they become tangible in our world later. And so even though Teshuvah existed, it didn't exist in a way that mankind could apply it until after the flood. That's my understanding of how that works.
Let me take this discussion. We don't have so much time for that. Let me take this discussion and take it down into actually what we're learning, what we're about to talk about, because we're going to see how this applies. The fact that Teshuvah wasn't yet applied, wasn't yet given to human beings, and the fact that Hashem destroyed the world by the flood. Because nobody did teshuvah. There was no discussion about teshuvah. It was, Noach told them, and they it ended up being Hashem destroyed everyone. So let's see another example for this, which is the story of Chanoch. And we have a lot to get through, so I'm going to try to touch upon a few different things. Chanoch is spoken about in the portion of Bereshit. He's one of the grandchildren of Adam, and it says that Chanoch lived for maybe 300 and something years.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike everybody else that lived for like 800-900 years. Mm-hmm. And it says, Ki lakacha Torah Elokim. Hashem took him.
Right.
What does it mean? It means that Hashem took him early, before his time, before the time when everybody else died, because he was a righteous person, unlike everybody else in his times. And Hashem didn't want him to get corrupted. Because, he managed to hold up. But if we would go too far, this is what we spoke about last week. We said that Hashem was giving his divine energy to the world. People were living for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible things were happening. But they were all in God's hands, so to speak. And it wasn't that the human beings, people didn't have their own framework. Like the students, they didn't have their own framework of how to build back up. If they went too low, how can they get back out of the dirt? This is why the flood happened. They were too far gone. And they didn't have a way out. There was no way back up. Hashem hadn't given a framework for teshuvah. Teshuvah existed in the higher worlds, but he hadn't given yet the framework of how to do teshuvah. So once they went too far, it was gone. It was a done deal. They're going to be destroyed. So Hashem saw Chanoch. Chanoch was a righteous person. He was doing okay in his times, but if he's going to stay around for too long, he's going to get corrupted also. So Hashem took him early. That's what it says.
That's an interesting explanation.
So here we see, like the teacher. And the teacher is sharing the idea, gives over the light. The light, Hashem is giving the light to the people. He's creating the people, he's giving them long life. They're living for hundreds of years, for 900 years. But they don't have the methodology, they don't have the framework of how to get back out of the dirt if they get too far. They don't know how to do it themselves. They can't be alone. They need to be always in God's hands. And Hashem said, I'm not interested anymore, I'm destroying them.
So it's kind of, but God created all this. So why did he create Adam Rami Minurav? I mean, that's
asking me.
What?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I mean, what's the idea here? What's create something bad and then destroy it? I mean, I guess we do that sometimes. If I make a picture and I don't like it, I just crumble it up and throw it away and start another one. But I'm not God, so.
It's a great question. We're not going to go into it right now, but we spoke about it a little bit last week. But I mean, it's the same story about the story of the Etz Hadat, of the tree of knowledge. You know, Hashem told them not to eat it. They ate it. You know, what was the plan going to be before? Did Hashem really not want them to eat it? Maybe he did want them to eat it. Maybe he wanted them to do it to eat it, so they could, the world would become more of a a place where people have proper free choice and they have an evil inclination that's pulling them down. So let's leave that for now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Comes the times of Noach. So we said that Noach was the second level. So Noach was the beginning of the flood, was the refinement of the world. We spoke about last week, the refinement of the world, where the world becomes more refined, more of a clear place, a place that people have the ability themselves to fix their ways. People have the ability to do teshuvah. And Noach was the one. He offered the sacrifices. And Hashem smelt. He smelled the beautiful smell of the sacrifice. He said, now I'm going to keep the people. So it was us, it was human beings that changed the course of things. And now it's going to be, now they have the ability to make me happy, God says. They know how to do it themselves. And Noach, he actually, he wasn't just limited to himself. He didn't just keep the knowledge for, just have the light that he got from the teacher. He also went to other people and he told them, do teshuvah, fix your ways. Unlike Chanoch, who it was impossible. Here there was some place for teshuvah, let's say. There was some, maybe this is the explanation to your question earlier, David. You said was there no teshuvah yet? Maybe there was some kind of teshuvah that was possible once Noach came around. Noach somewhat changed that. Noach brought the right gardening tools that now they could fix the land. Until Noach, there was still suffering from the sin of Adam and Eve. They didn't have the way out. So there was something from below. But Rashi says regarding the fact that Noach didn't go into the ark right away. I forgot that I don't have the Chumash in front of me, but there's a verse that brings this out. Basically, the water that Noach all the animals went in first. His family went in first. But then until the flood actually came, Noach didn't go into the ark. The water pushed him in. He didn't really believe in God. Well, what does that mean? He didn't really have the proper faith in God. He didn't have the faith in God the way Abraham had it. Abraham questioned God. He questioned everything. Not questioning God. He questioned everything. He questioned creation. He asked questions. One question, another question. He wasn't scared of using his mind. Faith in God, trust in God doesn't come from fear of using our mind. That's blind faith. That's stupidity. Faith doesn't limit our minds. We ask all the questions. We ask everything we want to ask. We look for the answers for them. And once we have enough understanding of Hashem, enough understanding of creation, enough understanding of Torah, enough understanding of everything else, we are awestruck. Wow, Hashem is so great. Hashem is beyond our minds. There's something higher than this. And that's where belief comes in. That's where faith comes in. faith is a level higher than our minds, not a level where we push away our minds. So Noah had the mind, he had the framework, he knew how to do the teshuvah, he knew how to talk to God. But the faith didn't permeate him. It didn't take him over beyond his mind. It didn't have the depth of God. He didn't have the light of Hashem inside of him. He had the framework of teshuvah, telling the people to return, building an ark, staying sane, staying good, making the offerings, but he didn't have the light of Hashem inside of him. And therefore, he wasn't fully trusting in God. It was up to his mind, as much as he could see, as much as he could understand. The great Jewish philosophers, the Kuzari, the Rambam, the Maimonides, they explain how the giving of the Torah is a proven fact. It's not something that we believe in. 3,334 years ago, Hashem gave the Torah Mount Sinai, based on a lot of different, based on some simple explanations of giving. We were able to prove the giving of the Torah, and the same thing comes to the fact that God created something from nothing, created the world. But the faith is something higher than that. Faith is believing in Hashem higher than the world. Abraham did all the things, he did all the work with his mind. He got up to Noah's level, then he went higher. Then he started to believe in Hashem in a way that's higher than the world. As we say in the prayers, Umatzata et levavo na'eman lefanecha. Hashem found his heart to be trusting in him, to be believing in him. He was fully believing in Hashem. And he took those deep ideas, he took that belief in Hashem, and he brought it down into understanding, to explain to people, to give it over to people. And he didn't limit it to himself. He didn't just do his job. He actually gave it over to the world around him. He gave it to people. So Abraham had the framework, he had the understanding, he had the Torah, he had everything else, but he had the depth, he had the light of Hashem inside of him also, beyond Noah. Which is why Abraham went and he asked for mercy for the sinners. How does this translate into our lives? And I'm going to get back to run out of time over here. We might be a couple of minutes late. We might be a couple of minutes after 11:15 today. Try not to go too far. How does this translate into our lives? And then we can take it back from our lives into what Abraham was missing. Because we said before that Abraham was also missing something. He only asked the merit of the righteous people. He was working on the world outside of him, and he went and he brought thousands of people closer to God. All of the people that it says Abraham converted, and the women and Sarah converted to Judaism, converted to monotheism and to belief in Hashem. But there was still something missing. There are times when we can become inspired by something, right? We can take an idea. We can be in a class, or we could be in a synagogue, or we could be in a community of some sort, or some kind of gathering, and we could be inspired by the light, be inspired by the transmission of the teacher, so to speak. So our souls get lifted up. Sometimes it happens to us. We do spiritual work, and when our souls get lifted up, we feel on a different plane. We at a great state of joy. It could be we get lifted up to on a higher place. But it doesn't actually affect our bodies. It doesn't actually affect our lives. It doesn't actually change who we are. It's just a transmission. It's a piece of knowledge. It's a depth from the teacher. It's a light of the teacher. But we are still that. I'm still me. And as soon as I try to figure something else out, I'm stuck. I don't have that. I don't have any tool of how to do it. As soon as I try to take the soul light into my body, I don't have the ability to do it. It's just a light. It's just light isn't tangible. Light isn't something that I can put into a vessel, that I can bring down into my life, I can actually transform my life with, if it's just light by itself. I certainly can't go and impact others. If I can't change myself, I certainly can't impact others with the light. This is the light of pre-flood, the light of the people. The Hashem is creating the people and giving them this long life and giving them the light. but they had no way how to get out of the mess if they went too far. David, I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to keep on. I just want to get to the end of this idea, and then we'll do questions, so I can give it over properly. The second level from Noach, which is, we say, and it says in Pirkei Avot, actually, in Ethics of the Fathers, it divides up between the 10 generations from Adam ad Noach, and then the 10 generations Noach ad Avraham, from Noach until Abraham. So there was 10. So these were like a different. There's a different time, a different transmission in the world. Then, what happens by Noach? Noach goes out to also help impact the people. He goes and he rebukes the people for their ways. He tells them, you need to fix your ways. I'm building a teva, an ark. The whole purpose of building the ark is to help you fix your ways, to remind you that you should do your job. But he didn't actually respond to God. He didn't ask God to forgive the people. He only knew the framework of how to do it down here. But he didn't say to God, he didn't try to bring down a new depth, a new light. And he pretty much just did his job. Hashem said, go rebuke the people. So he went and rebuked the people. And his rebuke didn't have any impact. Didn't change the people. He tried and it didn't work. The third level is beyond what my job is. I could do my job. God gave me my job. My role is to do this and this work, and I have this. I have my family, and this is my mission in the world. And I don't care anything besides that. Let God destroy the world. Let the world be. Let me go. I'll go into the ark with my family. I did my job. I told them what to do. I told them fix your ways, and I wasn't successful. Now I move back. Now I go back into my life. Mm-hmm. Abraham had Mesirat Nefesh. He was thrown into the fire because of his belief in Hashem, and because he was trying to teach this message to the world. It's higher than me. It's beyond me. Hashem has a mission in the world. Hashem wants us to transform the world. Hashem wants the world to be transformed. So I care deeply about that, even if it's beyond what my official responsibility is, beyond the official framework that I was given. I'm going to go higher than that. I'm going to go to the light, to the level where the teacher is shining. Because I want to really bring joy to Hashem. I want to really bring joy to the teacher. I want to really fulfill the mission in the world to transform everyone, even those who are outside of my circle. This is Abraham. There's a higher level, a fourth level. And there's no example from a teacher and a student for this, because you can't really bring this out in knowledge or depth. The fact is that the teacher is only going to deal with a student that has the mind to become like him, or that has the mind to be able to grasp this idea. Someone who's stupid is not going to become a teacher's student, because he's not on the same. We're not on the same ball game. We're not on the same. We're on two different. What's the phrase? We're on two different. We can't talk to each other. When Hashem gave the Torah to the Jewish people, He gave His light down into the physical world, into the material world. Where we can take a piece of leather and turn it into a light of Hashem. We can take our legs and use them for the highest purpose of serving Hashem, or our arms. So even something which is materialistic, we can transform into the light. And this is the level. This is Abraham went as far as asking in merit of the righteous people. He didn't go and ask for the people who were too far gone themselves, because he didn't see the light reaching to that level. He didn't see it being possible. He tried the framework. The framework didn't work. He tried the teshuva didn't work. Let's say Lot was there. His nephew tried. Teshuva didn't work. The light. There was no righteous people that their light would protect the rest of the people. And once that was over, there was no more righteous people. He gave up. What Hashem gave us when He gave us the Torah was the mitzvah of loving our fellow Jew as ourselves. is that even if we can't impact another person, we can't change them to become like us, we can't change them to become the way Hashem wants in the bigger mission of the world, we are deeply connected. We are all rooted in the same place. So even someone who the rebuke is not going to transform them, even someone who they're not going to do teshuvah, I'm going to also ask for mercy from them. And that's what Moses did after the sin of the golden calf. Moses said, forgive them, take away the punishment, otherwise get rid of me. Take me out of the Torah. I am not interested in the whole thing if you don't care about the people for who they are. If you really care about the people for who they are, then they'll be able to become God-fearing, they'll be able to become connected for Hashem. When do we really have an impact on somebody else? When we care deeply about them, not about them being like us. That's what true love is. That's what true love is to a child, let's say, or to another person. I love the child, even if the child is not going to give me nachas, not going to make me proud. It's my child, and I love them. I care about them. I deeply care about them for who they are. Noach was not successful with his rebuke because he didn't care about them. All he cared about was doing his job. Abraham didn't try the rebuke. Abraham tried to talk to God, but it was all about the light, all about the righteous people. Moses says, then, it's material. Hashem, you can take your deep knowledge and everything else, your Torah, as long as it needs to come down to the lowest level and to the people. That's the abbreviated version of this discourse, which is a lot to work with. What time are we? 12:20. I'm so sorry. The overtime? Huh?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I mean, you decided that we had to edit 11:15. It's
12:15.
yeah, 12:15. So.
Yeah. No, I mean people have other meetings, other things to do. So I say a time. I try to.
Yeah, this is great.
We're trying to start on time
Thank you.
each week. Thank you, Robin.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even beyond
Really.
the spiritual, I mean, just thinking about the political, which we're about to dive into again. I mean, just the idea that, you know, to extend this light to everyone, not just people who we agree with or who we perceive on our level or something like that. And yeah, it's challenging.
Yep.
But
It comes from really caring about others. As Jewish people, and we have Jewish neighbors, you know, we are all from the same family. We all have the same DNA, so to speak. Our care for others is beyond, you know, our spiritual connection. It's a physical connection. And this year is a year of Hakel. So we all have the opportunity to gather with other Jews that might not be in a community or going to a synagogue or interested in any of that, but just to gather with them as Jews. And that itself already has a very deep message to them because they are brothers and sisters. This is what we spoke about on Shabbat, at the Shabbat 100. So, yeah. Very good. If anybody wants to stick around for a question or two, I'll be here for a couple of minutes. My kids are not home yet. Otherwise, have a great week. Shavua Tov.
What the?
And next week we'll meet again. The following week, 2 weeks from today, I don't believe we'll be having a class. Maybe we'll see if we can reschedule if people are available for Tuesday. I'm going to be traveling back from New York on that day. I'll be going to the Chabad Emissaries Shluchim Convention in New York. So I'll be traveling back on Monday morning. But next week we'll see everybody at 11:30 till 12:15.
Good. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
You're not going to stick around for a question? You had a bunch of questions.
Yep.
You done?